Yeah, there's still snacks out there, so I think they'll come, but we're going to make them open the door. All right, thanks for staying for the second part, everybody. We do have a new sign-in sheet and a new set of session evaluations because technically this is a different session. So I'm going to circulate those. If you filled one out before, it would be helpful if you could fill it out again. Here's a pen. I think everyone. Okay, so welcome to the second half of Weatherization 2022, What Lies Ahead. DOE gave us a lot of great information the first time around, and this session, we're going to focus a little bit more on question and answer. I know during the break, a number of people came up and already posed some good questions, but Amy at DOE, if you'd like to get us started with some more comments, then I'll follow your lead.
Okay, I'm going to kick us off here. I think we do have some slides prepared, but we would like to first just take questions from the audience and make sure we address all of the questions that you all have today. So Amy, if there's anything you want to start with, we're happy to do that, and I'll keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A online.
Well, I do have a really good question that I'd like to start off with from my new friend, Freddie in California. Would you like to come up to the mic and ask your question, Freddie? I don't think this mic moves, so you'll. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay,
Testing.
we have an audience mic, so that's good.
So one of the questions I had was in DOE, it requires us now that if a home's received 15 years of some type of, weatherization service, that we have to go back 15 years and research that home to make sure that we haven't provided services to that home. However, that includes light heat now. So for us, light heat was not a requirement to keep 15 years of records. So when we reach out to the state to see if this home has ever been serviced, because we don't have 15 years of records, we don't really get an answer saying yes or no. And it falls on us to make sure that this home hasn't been serviced. But we can't prove that this home hasn't been serviced because we don't have 15 years of records for this particular home. So most of us are not spending that DOE funding if the home qualifies because we can't prove that this home hasn't been served in 15 years. Our concern is that
this is Erica. Sorry.
That they'll come back, CSD will come back and say, oh, hey, this home was served. You guys provided DOE funding. You have to pay out of pocket to come up with the expenses on this home.
Okay, well, I would hope that the grantee could certainly see the issues inherent with the language changes and the reauthorization. We see it as a major barrier ourselves and have tried to put forward some alternative language, both in rulemaking and in discussions that we've had with appropriators on technical assistance calls, because I'm pretty sure that the intent wasn't to make it more difficult to braid resources and to serve low-income families, but in effect, that's what the language has done. So I don't know that we have a good answer for you other than we're trying to get clarification on the language and move forward with the rulemaking to address the sort of conflicting language in the statute. DOE doesn't have access to light heat records or HUD records either. And it did specifically say all federal funds. So we are all in the same boat in terms of it making it more difficult. But I also, other than pursuing the rulemaking and continuing to bring it up with those on the Hill when we're asked to provide technical assistance, we are in kind of a quandary. So I don't have a good answer, but we certainly understand the issue that you are having. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons the state of California has millions of dollars sitting on DOE funds. Because a lot of the local service providers are kind of hesitant to push that money out.
Again, I think what we've tried to say is not a lot, because we think it's an issue with, the appropriator staffers that we've spoken to on those couple occasions did not, I think, intend for the language to have that effect. And we're just moving forward, trying to get a clarification and a fix. In the meantime, I do hope that grantees around the country are working with local agencies, to understand it's an impossibility for DOE to have access to that timeline for those that are other federal funds. If other agencies are providing weatherization, local agencies are unaware of that if it's outside of their office. So I wish I had a good answer for you, but we recognize the problem right away.
We have another question in the room. Are you, Amy K, are you monitoring the chat? Are you getting questions from the virtual audience?
Nothing has come in yet, but yes, I'm
Okay.
keeping an eye on it.
Okay, I'll try to alternate between virtual and in person if we get some. Go ahead in the plaid shirt. You can take your mask down if you're comfortable to make
Okay.
the sound better. Yeah.
All right, I had 3 quick, easy questions. Just to clarify, the weatherization readiness or the weatherization funds will be spent over 5 years or until spent. And then does roof repairs include roof replacements? And could readiness funds include replacing knob and tube in attics?
Like,
what's your name?
we're hoping to
Randall?
make readiness as flexible as possible. I think we could make the case around knob and tubes in attics, because it makes it impossible to air seal and insulate the attic. So I think that that's a good argument to be made. We haven't written the policy, but we would certainly consider that, at least I would consider that as a justifiable purpose. So in the language that I've seen, so like I said, you might get the deep skinny from David Bradley tomorrow, but the language that I've seen does not include readiness in the BIF or the bid. So that 3.5 billion, the last language that I've seen, doesn't include readiness. Where readiness comes in is under the formula program. I know that there have been lots of efforts to get readiness included in the BIF or the infrastructure deal, whatever we want to call it. But the last language I have seen did not include readiness there. And I'm not sure I answered your third question.
The 3.5 billion, does that have to be spent over 5 years or until spent?
Well, again, the last language that I saw said available until spent. There was some, I think, different parties trying to put some time frames around that, but the last version that I saw said until spent.
Thank you.
Wait, and Randall, could you tell us what agency and what state you're from, just for the benefit of everyone?
Community Action Organization in Hillsboro, Oregon.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any more questions from the room. Okay, my friend Freddie has another question. Okay, we'll do back there and then in the front.
I got a question about the QCI mentorship.
Can you tell us your name and state and organization?
Brandon Sheldon, I'm with the Community Action Agency in Fargo, North Dakota.
Thank you.
The QCI mentorship program, is that something that the person that is being mentored will still have to go through the written test to obtain that QCI? In most cases, we are seeing that our candidates go through the field tests and do very well, but they continue to struggle on the written part of the test. I think the mentorship is a great option if there's a way around that written test.
So I can touch on that one. So the mentorship is not a way to, unfortunately, bypass any of the testing aspect of it. The mentorship. Aspect
We
is-
can't hear you, Derek. Can you speak into the mic?
How about that?
That's good.
I'll just, if it goes out again, let me know. I can switch my microphones again. The mentorship aspect of the quality work plan update, unfortunately, is not a way to bypass any of the testing elements. The mentorship aspect is a way to allow those individuals that are working towards obtaining a certification to be able to complete inspections in the weatherization assistance program underneath the supervision or oversight of a certified individual. Now, how that's set up is really going to be up to like how the grantee designs that mentorship program, or what's allowable. I understand, and I emphasize the testing aspect of it, but it is hopeful that this on-the-job experience also help address some of the the testing we are running into issues. I do know that the updated online exam or the written exam has seen an increase in the successful individuals that are challenging the exam from the past. They did remove a lot of the soft skills that would be kind of some of the questions that were rather vague, or they had potential multiple answers. We are aware that we're still hearing about some of the questions, and those are being captured so that when the question bank is being updated again over the course of the next year, we can again make sure that we're trying to be as objective as possible on the questions and only have one true answer, and to be able to provide any resources available to help the individual with that. But the short answer is no, the mentorship would not be a way to bypass the testing element.
This is Freddie Hernandez again from the state of California. I don't know if this is a state thing or for DOE, when we do DOE, we do wall insulation. And the state of California considers matching the paint after we make the holes and patch them up a cosmetic thing, which is not approved through DOE. Is that correct, or are they just reading above the lines?
So there's the grantees of the basis of it is they have the field guide has to be crosswalked and aligned to the standard work specifications. So anything above and beyond what the required objective is of the standard work specification is up to the grantee's discretion if they would like to add that. There is language in the SWS that does indicate that you do have to properly patch. Now, matching the paint color is not specifically called out in the SWS, but if a grantee does include that as part of their field guide, that's not necessarily something that we would flag. What we flag is if what's submitted does not meet the minimum objective. So with that being said, there's not a federal requirement or a DOE requirement that the paint be matched when plugging the holes. But if a grantee does require it, that is the requirement that the grantee has in place.
Because
Does that actually answer the question, or do you need more
it does. I mean,
clarification?
it's the state of California, because it limits some of the homeowners don't want that insulation because we leave gray patches on the walls after we're done.
Mhm.
So that limits us to also on DOE expenditures.
The state could allow.
Yeah, so Derek, there's a question from Meg. She wants to know, does that mean the state could allow it?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see any other questions.
I should add one more thing about that.
Mhm.
When we come and monitor the grantee and we're looking at completed units, it would not be something that we would note if the paint color was matched. It would not. It would not be a flag that would be raised in any of our project officers' on-site visits of going above and beyond. That's not something that we would flag.
Thank you, Derek. Any other questions? Did you want to go back to your slides, Amy?
Sure, we can do that. it looks like we have some online attendees. So if anyone has a question, please type it in the chat. And I will share my screen while we're giving you a moment to do that. And Derek, if you can keep an eye on that chat, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, I
So,
have it.
all right, thanks. So what we thought we'd do is put together some frequently asked questions. Now, these might be questions that a lot of you know the answers to, but they are asked quite a bit of us at DOE. So I'm going to facilitate and read the questions, and Erica and Derek will provide responses. And as you have, hopefully these will prompt some more questions from all of you. So as you have questions as we move along, please raise your hand in the audience or type it in the chat. So the first question, and this is one of the most commonly asked questions, I think, is can DOE increase the average cost per unit?
And are you going to do the drum roll, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Jeopardy theme.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. So the answer is under statute, it lists the average cost per unit with an increase that's tied to the consumer price index. The last time it was updated was in was under recovery. So that was what, 2009. I think, do you have another slide with all the little updates? It's really nice so that we can kind of see where we've been.
Spoiler alert. Now people are going to know the answer to that question.
It's really, it's, you know, I understand everyone's looking for additional average cost increases, but it, you know, it is a product of legislation, but there is a nice little where we started and what year there were updates. So it also looks like we're getting some questions. So
yeah. We have a couple more on ACPU, and why don't we just go to that slide that you just mentioned so we could see. So here's a little more, I guess, difficult question. What costs are included in the average cost per unit, or ACPU?
Okay, so average cost per unit, or what we call, like if you're at the grantee level, the program operations budget category. Vehicles and equipment is an optional category, but it all filters into program operations. So we take the expenditures in program operations and divide it by the number of units to get the statewide average cost. So there are, you know, like there are lots of categories that states use that aren't necessarily the budget categories that get reported up to DOE. Like many states have a support cost category that is in a DOE category, but does get reported through program operations is how we see it when it comes to us. So those things that are not part of average cost per unit are admin, TNTA, health and safety when budgeted separately. And I believe every grantee is now budgeting health and safety separately. So it's not part of the average cost. There are categories for liability insurance, leveraging, financial audit. And you can see kind of where we are nationally and our 2021 average cost per unit.
All right, and one more ACPU question. Did you have something else you wanted to say on that?
This is really
Erica?
cool.
Sorry,
It's in the briefing book, a nice resource if you get a chance to look at it.
I think we have a question in the room.
So the average cost per unit was not increased for the $3.5 billion?
I'm going to have you repeat that into the microphone.
The average cost per unit was not increased for the $3.5 billion?
Not that I've seen. That's still undergoing negotiations. I've seen a few things that may be included by different parties, but it's embargoed, so I can't really talk about it. But what is public and in the language now, there's not an increase.
I think Meg is going to comment on that as well. Hold on a second, Erica.
So I don't want to embarrass DOE with this. You will hear a discussion. That is better. There's no language, there's no direction, there's nothing changed, just money in the $3.5 billion, which is part of the infrastructure bill. And tomorrow you'll hear discussion, David Bradley's talk about an NCAF. I don't have a different hat put on, but I'm talking about what National Community Action Foundation's doing. It's trying really hard to get, first we tried legislative stuff, but there's not the format under these rules, blah, blah, blah. So something to make changes in the ACPU and in a number of other features of the program. And I will embarrass the feds if we get into too much of a legislative discussion. So I will leave that to David tomorrow, but he will also be recruiting everybody to start talking to Congress and helping. There are all kinds of reasons that without some change, that 3.5 billion isn't going to do all the good it could do. But I have a question for Erica. Erica, some things have already been excluded from the ACPU by the wisdom of DOE, thank goodness, like liability insurance. Aren't there other things that items that could also be in separate budgets, just as health and safety isn't counted in ACPU if it's in a separate budget, and so forth, of the general things like warehousing costs and so forth that are now averaged over all homes, or visiting a home that when you have to pay for the visit and the audit, and when you find a home has to be deferred. I'm just thinking of examples of things that maybe wouldn't have to be counted against the average cost.
Erica, you're muted.
Sorry. I guess I would say we could, work to come up with a list of things to make the argument with general counsel on a few of those items for sure. Right. I mean, how program operations has historically been thought about as all direct costs that go to providing service to the clients in their homes that support or are directly related to the installation of energy conservation measures. And we can have that discussion, and, we can ask general counsel that, we need to be careful what our argument is, and we need to ask the right way so we don't get ourselves into other issues. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one to think you want to be very careful what you ask general counsel, but certainly we could look at doing that.
Erica, this is Amy from NCAP. I'd like to ask a clarifying question. Something that for me, I need clarification on this. Other folks may already understand this, but I know that there is a danger in increasing the average cost per unit beyond a certain level. What are the political pitfalls of making that kind of an ask?
Well, I feel like there's like everything in this program, there's always a balance that has to be struck between, and there's always this, push and pull between, deep retrofits, doing all sorts of things in client homes that are absolutely needed, and the different funding that can be braided to go into the program. But then we run up against, up until, as I talked about earlier, up until, 2020, it was the first time we'd ever had an appropriation over 275 million since recovery. So prior to, like in this next slide that Amy is going to show, you can see the very small average cost per unit, and we were doing lots and lots of homes under those very small dollars. Now, granted, we are a much more sophisticated and complex program than we were back in 1984. But at the same time, there's a balance between how much work goes into an individual home and how many people we can serve. So if we were to do, spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in each individual home, not that those aren't real costs and we're putting in PV and all those things, we're serving a lot less people. And, what is the balance? How do we continue to make sure that we are doing the work that needs to be done for low-income households, but at the same time, balancing that against the vast number of people who need to be served? And so, we have to find our balance, whatever that is.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I do want to talk about this little slide because, maybe there are some who haven't seen sort of the progression in the changes to the average cost per unit. Prior to 2009, when we received stimulus under recovery, we were averaging less than $3,000 a house. So, I understand that there's great need and that local agencies are doing everything they can to improve housing stock. And, especially right now with the supply chain issues and inflation costs, it's extremely difficult. So whatever that number ends up being, and like I said, at your David Bradley session, your NCAF session, I'm sure that they have the skinny on what's actually, likely to come about. But I'm just providing, kind of a, what I've seen. Okay, do we have any other questions in the room or in the chat, or should we just do another slide? I can't
there
see.
are no raised hands in the room.
And we do have one question in the chat. Derek, I'll go back to you for this one. It's regarding the QCI mentorship. Will mentors be able to work across agencies, or would this just be for a single organization?
First, just want to make sure that I'm coming in clear right now.
Nope.
Okay, now I should come in clear. So essentially the short answer is yes. That would be an allowable setup of a mentorship. Even like similar to how the QCI is set up right now, that an agency could contract or work with a neighboring agency to have QCIs completed there. The mentorship is going to be allowed to do the same. It does not have to be someone that's right at that agency. They can go across multiple agencies, or even cross state lines for that matter. But the short answer is yes. It's really trying to understand that agencies are having a hard time getting folks on board that have the minimum requirements needed to be a quality control inspector. And this mentorship aspect is really, it's not by any means at all like the way that we're going to solve the problem, but it's just another way of adding some flexibility that still does have the verification process in place from a certified QCI, but that non-certified individual underneath that supervision or oversight from a certified individual can go out and do inspections to work towards that. So the way it's described, or the question, is absolutely a yes.
Thanks,
And then
Derek.
we did get one more question that is chat on that topic. How will mentorships be different than the training that some agencies might be doing on the job now before an individual receives a certification?
The easiest answer to that is that at the moment, all approved grantee plans require that it's a certified individual completing the physical inspection themselves. So the mentorship aspect is, just us kind of verbalizing, some of the, what can happen, what could happen. It's not by any means at all where the individual is never going to challenge the exam. There will be kind of the expectation that the individual is working towards challenging the exam, that the end goal or the objective of the mentorship is that this individual does obtain a certification. Timelines, timeframes, that'll all be dependent on how grantees set up the mentorship option. And I should add, in hopes that they're having, when developing these, that they're having those discussions through technical advisory groups or whatever it may be with the sub-grantee network as well.
Okay, is that your
Okay.
last slide?
No, we have more if there's time, or if you have a question in the room, we could take
Yeah.
that too.
There's no questions in the room and we're at 5:01 Eastern time. So we have 14 minutes left. If you'd like to,
Okay.
we can keep going. And I don't hear any snoring. So the coffee seems to have worked.
Okay, here's another one for Derek. Can DOE funds be used for fuel switching?
Yeah, so if we want to go to the next slide on that one, absolutely.
And your
So-
sound is out again, Derek.
That is so frustrating. Okay, so it should be a little better now. But yes, absolutely, DOE funds can be utilized for fuel switching. If you go to Weatherization Program Notice 19.4 Attachment 5, and if these slides are sent out, I believe that is a hyperlink that'll take you to it. Fuel switching can be included either on a case-by-case basis, where the sub-grantee sends it up to the grantee, which then they send to us for review. Sounds very time-consuming. Or anytime that the grantee wants to, they can also make the submittal or the request to include fuel switching as a policy, where then it's simply the grantee that's administering that policy, and those jobs do not need to come to DOE for review. I believe, I want to make sure that I'm right on this, I believe it's 5 or 6 grantees currently have it as a fuel switching policy that does not require DOE approval on case by case. So yes, fuel switching absolutely is allowable with DOE funding.
That'd be a great thing for us to get a copy of one of those grantees and stick it online at the project so that we can
I
see.
think I hear a question. I just want to make sure that
That was a comment from Meg Power. Did everyone hear her or should we ask her to repeat that?
Wasn't to him particularly, but
Oh.
that you could put this online if you'll give us a copy of one of those grantee plans or tell us who to ask.
Yes. So we can.
Okay, we still didn't hear what was being said.
We would like to get a copy of one of those grantee plans so that the project can share it out. And also, I would like to take this moment to say we can also share the slides from today's session.
Mhm.
I don't think, I'm not sure if they're going to be available in the app, but from DOE, we can certainly email them out. So if anyone is interested in some of the links that are embedded, we can make sure that you do get those. But for Amy and Sasha that are behind the scenes, if you could post those links into the chat, the folks that at least are virtual can click on them now to access those memos and stuff. Because they're not able to click on the screen where the slide is displayed. That's just a housekeeping point.
Sure.
in regards to sharing. Check with NASCAS real quick. They might already have some on the website that we can share very easily.
Nope.
But if not, then we'll be able to try to get something as an example.
Yeah, Derek, you faded out for part of that again.
All right. Regarding sharing a fuel switching policy, NASCAS might already have some on their website that's publicly available. If not, then we will certainly work with Amy to get an example policy so that sub-grantees are able to see it as well.
And overall, just a plug for the Energy Partnerships Project. If there's anything from any session having to do with energy, if you have a question, you can send me an email. That's why I'm giving everybody my card, because I really want to hear from you. So if you want to say, what was that thing that that guy said in that one room, I'll figure it out and I will send you a link. And it would make my day.
All right, I'm just taking a moment to check the chat. Don't see anything, so we could do another slide. I think you kind of answered this question during the first session, Derek.
Yeah.
So maybe we could skip over this one.
Right.
Then
Yeah, we will still require QCI. That's a regulatory requirement that all units receive an inspection, final inspection.
Okay, so we'll go to the next question, which is also on worker certifications for Derek. Will DOE start requiring energy auditor certification or any other worker certifications?
Yeah, so we certainly do hear this question quite a bit. So if you want to go to the next slide.
And we're not hearing you again, Derek.
We do get this question quite a bit, and the answer is no. At this time, DOE does not plan to require additional worker certifications other than the prerequisites required to challenge the quality control inspector exam. So what that means is, if you have individuals that are working in the program on DOE funded units that are doing energy audits, there is not a requirement that they have an energy audit certification. However, that individual does any final inspections for the subgrantee, then they have to have the quality control inspector certification. And the prerequisite to that is energy auditor. But at this time, we are not we do not have any plans to require additional worker certifications other than quality control inspector, which has been a longstanding requirement. We are aware of grantees, though, that have made grantee decisions to require energy auditor certification. I don't have the exact numbers on it, but I do know at least several of the grantees that I'm also a project officer for do require energy auditor as a required certification for their energy auditors.
Okay, and moving on, we also did answer this question, I think, the first session too. And can we carry over funds after this program year? The answer is no. But as Erica mentioned during the first session, we will be closing out all of the awards, and then then that money will be deobligated and recaptured by the Department of Energy. And our goal is to put that out with the formula allocation. And there's a link to memo 79, and I am not able to copy those right now, but if Sasha or anyone else is able to put some of those links in the chat for the online folks, that'd be great.
Can I make either a comment or a question? This is Meg, but I thought in your memo, the part where it starts out and explains how heroic the effort so far has been, it's not just some idle compliment, it's real. It's amazing that as much money is already spent and will be spent even more before this is over. CAPS can't stand to send money back, and state bureaucrats get dinged for it, and probably worse for sending money back. If there's any way that the department can issue deserved awards to everybody for just getting through this and getting most of the homes weatherized, it's going to help with the people to whom I think I worry particularly about the state bureaucrats, if you pardon my calling them that, to whom there may be consequences, maybe even CAP directors and their boards, just something that says the action is absolutely heroic. If there's some entities from whom you must withhold such praise, nobody will ever notice. But for most people, it's whether it's all spent or not, it's heroism. It's amazing. And you said that already. I simply I wonder if it wouldn't be worthwhile. You guys here, you have boards. Is it worthwhile to create awards and certificates of merit from DOE for unbelievable accomplishment, even if you have to send money back? There's some nodding going on in the room. And I have a feeling it's kind of worse for the state people. So anything that's creative that you guys can think of might help. The pain.
We can try and think about what that might look like. Sure. Like and those were the words that we used in Memorandum 79. Heroic efforts by the network to continue to provide services at a time of even greater need. So yes, let's look into that for sure. We certainly feel that way. We understand that there are many things right now beyond all of our control, and agencies and grantees still trying to provide quality services and continue to protect clients and their staff. It is heroism. We agree.
On that note, we should probably applaud. We have just, we have 4 minutes left for anyone that wants to ask any other questions or any final comments. Yes, we have another question from my buddy Randall.
Yeah, we're getting to be good friends.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I have the opportunity to ask this one. Will President Biden's goals for addressing the climate crisis impact fuel switching policy decisions? That is, switching to electrification.
I'm applauding. That is a good question. That is a well-worded question. Thank you, Randall. And I don't have the answer, so go ahead, Erica.
Okay, I'm not sure I have the answer either. But yes, I mean, I'm sure that there will be lots of work with either our office or other offices. There are lots of rebate programs that are going to be offered by, other offices within DOE. And if that comes to pass, I've been talking with, sorry, my internet connection is unstable. I'm going to stop my video. Hold on. I talked with Anna Maria Garcia today about, if the language around the rebate programs for upgrading electric panels comes to pass, we want to work with BTO to navigate and streamline the process so local agencies can have access to those funds for the upgrading of panels. And, we want to be part of working with other offices within DOE to allow agencies to do that work. How it is currently structured in weatherization, it's more difficult. But part of it is about some of those non-energy benefits and the societal costs and the research that we've been doing around that Derek talked about. So I don't have an answer for you today, but it's TBD. And we have been looking at the ways in which we could offer different options to grantees that can then, do some of the work that we're talking about for greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. Meg, do you have something to say about greenhouse gas emissions? I think that's really the question of the day, and it's a great way to close out the session because that's what's on everyone's mind. It's something that's going to come up in some of our other energy sessions that are taking place tomorrow. There's a lot happening with the Biden administration and the Justice 40 initiative that Sasha briefed us on. And how do you take, because climate is a larger concept than weatherization, and the concept of greenhouse gas emissions is not addressed in the nuts and bolts of how we do weatherization. So there's the philosophical question, and then there's the concrete implementation questions, and they're both TBD. But if we think of TBD as to be discussed, we're here to discuss them at this conference. So this is I think this is a really good segue to close out the session and remind everybody that we have all of tomorrow. We do have a track of energy related sessions. It's not highlighted in the conference booklet as a track. It doesn't have like its own color code, but there are energy sessions all day tomorrow. So we're starting off with solar justice first thing in the morning. We have a double session on energy equity, which is going to touch on how climate and environmental justice interact with energy efficiency and energy consumption and energy accessibility. Like it's a very, as we know, it's a complicated sort of nexus of relationships. So that you're definitely thinking about it the right way. And I hope that I'll see some of your faces tomorrow. Do you have any last words, DOE? Because I'm afraid that you're going to disappear momentarily because the thing shuts off right at 5:15.
All right. Well, just thank you so much for coming, sitting through this together. They're amazing sessions and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk with each of you. And, hopefully we'll see each other in person sometime soon.
Right. I hope that we'll see you as attendees in some of the other energy sessions, Erica.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
For the folks in the room, you're welcome to stick around and keep talking to me because the digital stuff is going to shut off, but Amy does not shut off. Amy just keeps going. Don't forget to fill out your evaluations. We can go around and collect those.
Sign-in sheets.
Yeah.
back there. Just tell us you were here and we'll know what to get back to you with.